How you doing, Mr. Deejay? We're soon countdown my fancy playlist, June 4th, 1984. Soulful voice of Dan Hartman. Boy, poured a lot of passion, a lot of heart and soul into this record. I Could Dream About You at number 19, up 2 from 21. Dan Hartman seemed to come out of nowhere to a lot of people, particularly the casual listeners. Dan Hartman, though, he's been in the music biz for quite a while. Some of the aficionados, those people who are really into rock and roll history, probably remember Dan Hartman, bass player. Well, he was a member of the Edgar Winter Group back in the early and mid 70s. Wrote one of their biggest hits, Free Ride. Remember Free Ride? Hot rotation AM radio hit back in the late summer, fall of 1973. Here's Mr. Deejay putting on my DJ voice. 5 years later, it went disco. Instant Replay. Remember Instant Replay? #1 on the dance charts. Went to number 29, I think, on Billboard's Hot 100. It was played extensively. Sure was, extensively. On AM radio back in the late summer, fall of 1978. Had another disco hit. Had several disco hits. Relight My Fire. 1979, he sounded like Michael Jackson. A little bit like Michael Jackson. He came out with an album. I believe the album was called It Hurts to Be in Love. Well, bottom line is this, 1981, he came out with 2 singles. Oh man, It Hurts to Be in Love. He covered that summer of 1964 Gene Pitney record, and boy, that was one of the best rock and roll records ever, that Gene Pitney version. And Dan Hartman did a pretty decent version of that song, but did not make top 40. Went to number 72 on Billboard's Hot 100. Heaven in Your Arms, another song that came out for Dan Hartman in 1981. A single was not played, ignored. Never in Your Arms went to number 86. But still, he got some mileage out of producing. Dan Hartman produced Living in America by James Brown. Yeah, that big James Brown comeback, boy. He was throwing down on that record too, man. It still had those steps, man. Live in America in 1986. Now here's the deal. Jimmy Iovine. Oh gosh, this guy's big. You don't cross this guy. Big record mogul, big record producer, Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy Iovine was working on a movie called Streets of Fire. He approached Dan Hartman. He asked Dan Hartman, well, basically it goes like this, I guess. He asked Dan Hartman, would you like to write a song for the movie Streets of Fire? Big offer. And you don't turn somebody like Jimmy Iovine down. But there was a catch, an understanding that 4 black guys will be singing his song in the movie and a concert venue. When Dan Hartman got the offer, he thought about I Can Dream About You. He had a demo of that song. But he had a thought. If I do this record, it could happen. This could be a big break for me. So he went through all the legal stuff, you know how this goes. Probably through the agents, through the lawyers, get some kind of renegotiation on the contract. Bottom line is, Dan Hartman had it set up to where any single, the single off the soundtrack, or well, basically any single coming off the soundtrack, period, of I Can Dream About You will be his version. And the version that the Sorrells, it was the group of black guys. Sorrells, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's Sorrels. Well, the Sorrells, when they're singing the song in the movie, Dan Hartman's voice would be dubbed in. That would be his version in the video. The Sorrells would be just lip syncing. Now here's another story. This is great. Kenny Fans. Kenny Fans, one of the founding members of J&D Americans back in the 60s. Yes. Let's Lock the Door and Throw Away the Key. Cara Mia, all those hits back in the mid-60s. Well, he was a musical director of Streets of Fire. He had recorded a version of that song, I Could Dream About You, with the Sorrells. I can't pronounce Sorrells. I think it's Sorrells. The Sorrells. He recorded the version with a guy named Winston Ford on lead vocals. Winston Ford, who worked at Radio Shack. This was the version that was going to come out. This was the version that these guys were going to sing in the movie. Until Dan Hartman heard it. He heard the track. And before Kenny Vance knew it, Winston Ford's voice was erased from that soundtrack, from that demo or whatever. Dan Hartman's voice was dubbed in. Bottom line is, Dan Hartman had his only top 10 hit with that song. He passed away in 1994, Dan Hartman, brain tumor, 43, I believe. One other thing I want to mention about this song. I had an epiphany the other night. Let me explain. Well, it was the other day. Before all this happened with the movie, when he came out, when he did the demo, or maybe before he did the demo, Dan Hartman offered I Can Dream About You to Hall & Oates. But they passed on it because they had already finished their new album. And man, I had this blazing epiphany when I was swimming at Maccabee Center the other day. Listen to Dan Hartman's I Can Dream About You. Listen to his voice. My goodness, it's the same blue-eyed soulfulness of Daryl Hall. It sounds like Daryl Hall. Particularly when he gets into the chorus and this register starts to go up. And I'm thinking, my God, little wonder why he offered the song to Hall & Oates. I Can Dream About You could have been a perfect vehicle for Hall & Oates. Classic, blue-eyed soul. Or soul, period. But Dan Hartman, well, he got the hit with it. It's at number 19 on my fantasy playlist, June 4th, 1984.